Put on the whole armor of God, Paul advises us in Ephesians today, so that you will be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. Paul's not playing either. He even includes a checklist so we make sure we really are putting on the whole armor of God. Well, that's considerate, right? Because what could be easier than running through a checklist? But here's the problem that I've found. Take the belt of truth, for example. Like a lot of us, I'm a bit flabbier than I'd like to be, spiritually speaking. And it turns out that all those times you tell your mom that you've quit smoking, or the panhandler that you don't have any cash, or your spouse that it was just one drink, or yourself that you really do need that 60-inch flat screen TV, or God that you're not hanging out with other idols, you've just been working late at the office a lot, all those times add up. Turns out it's pretty tough to fit the belt of truth around the beer belly of denial. Then there's the breastplate of righteousness. That should be no problem at all until you read the fine print. Self-righteousness doesn't count. And you're like, oh man, you mean I've been wearing the wrong breastplate the whole time? And it goes on like this. The shoes for proclaiming peace seem to fit pretty well until someone cuts you off in traffic and you find yourself giving them the finger of murderous thoughts. And I don't know about you, but my head is usually too swollen for the helmet of salvation. My sword of the Spirit tends to get caught in the sheath of distraction, and a lot of the time my shield of faith feels like it's been made of, I don't know, the balsa wood of uncertainty. So right, if you're anything like me, we can don some of this armor some of the time. We can fend off the spiritual forces of evil, maybe every third Tuesday. But put on the whole armor of God, pray in the Spirit at all times? That seems like a pretty tall order, maybe even superhuman. Most of the time, we may feel more like the Israelites in the book of Joshua today, promising to forsake all other gods and serve only the Lord, and destined to break their commitment again and again and again. Or, like the disciples in John, proclaiming their faith and adoration of Jesus as if no future moment could possibly dawn when they would scatter from the scene of his crucifixion or doubt the miracle of his resurrection. So what's a Christian to do? Some years back, I heard a wonderful interview with Nadia Bolz-Weber, who's kind of a superstar among mainline clergy. A tattooed, out-of-the-box, Gen X Lutheran pastor, Bolz-Weber started her own church in Denver, where it grew from 8 to 250 active members in 5 years. In this interview, she was talking about the Nicene Creed and how some people in her congregation have complained that they don't feel like they can recite it because they don't believe every line of it. And she's like, nobody believes every line in the creed, but in a room of people, for each line of the creed, somebody believes it. So we're covered. Then she goes on to observe, this is Western individualism run amok in religion. It's not your creed, it's the church's creed. And I think we've really lost track of that in this personal, me and Jesus, how I feel, my personal prayer life stuff. This thing is really about community. I wonder, could this be true of Paul's advice in Ephesians as well? One commentator on this passage has noted that the words calling upon believers to stand fast are plural. You plural should put on the belt of truth. You plural. So it's the community as a whole that is armed with faith, truth, peace, God's Spirit, and prayer. So maybe taking up the whole armor of God really is impossible for individuals to accomplish by themselves. Maybe the whole armor can only be borne by communities. Just as somebody in the room believes any given line of the creed, so at any moment somebody in the church is wearing the belt of truth, and somebody has put on the breastplate of righteousness, and somebody has peace or faith or a sense of salvation or the Spirit. That's why it's always struck me as misguided when I've heard people say that they're Christians, but they don't gather and worship together with other Christians. Christianity without community, to me, is an oxymoron. Even the desert monks of the 4th century, praying alone in caves for years, visited each other to give advice and support, and ended up founding the first monasteries. As Bolz-Weber puts it, I don't think faith is given in sufficient quantity to individuals necessarily. I think it's given in sufficient quantity to communities. This is not to say that communities can't make mistakes and go off the moral rails, only that communities provide something we deeply need to really follow Jesus, each other. I need you to declare God's goodness and love when I can't, because my child is dangerously sick. I need you to remind me of God's grace when I can't remember it myself, because my marriage is falling apart. I need you to confront me with the truth about my addiction when I'm unable to confront myself, because I don't want to face it. Just as you need me for all of these things. We need each other. It's the only way we can check off everything in Paul's list. It's the only way we can put on the whole armor of God. Amen.